Hello, everyone, and welcome to our call here this evening. We're so proud that you are willing to spend this time with us. We know is precious, this time of year especially. And I am just so honored for you to hear from the panelists that we have this evening. The Women's Fund, as many of you know, we have a wide range of people on the phone and I guess on the Zoom tonight. And it's everything from founders of our organization to some of you who've just recently discovered us. And I think that that's the true essence of the Women's Fund, that we are the true authentic example of democratized philanthropy. And everyone brings to us, we meet you where you are and hope that you will join us in creating equity. And the partners you're going to hear from tonight are on the ground. They're on the front lines doing what we do best. And that is, we believe that we invest in women of color who have are on the front line of designing the true solutions that our community and our society needs. It's not about us telling them what the solution is. It's about us investing in them, courageously trusting them, and believing that they know the road and that what they need is our unfettered, courageous support. And these partners you will hear from tonight have been doing that with us recently, and they're going to tell you about that as well as the opportunities that they have to do even more when we invest in them. So thank you to all of you who are on the line, whether you've been a grant reader, whether you've been an investor, whether you're a founder, or whether this is your first event with us. We're very excited for you to hear from these women who are breaking ground every day. We are eternally proud to be investing in them and hope that you will be as inspired as we are to hear their story and to hear why we need to do so much more to invest in them moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the others on this call, and I hope to be able to see you again at the end. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dr. Sierra Austin, and I am a very proud board member of the Women's Fund of Central Ohio. By virtue of your participation this evening, you are likely well aware that the Women's Fund of Central Ohio is fiercely committed to igniting social change. This is a lofty aspiration because it is one that forces us to contend with interventions and approaches to the work that seek to dismantle centuries-old systems of inequity, to boldly dream of a just world, likely one that we won't see in our lifetimes, but one that we will lovingly leave to the generation behind us and generations that are yet to be born. This makes our work and grant making inherently different, inherently unique. We look less for the traditional diversity, equity, and inclusion measurables, but instead focused on combating harmful ideologies and disrupting systems. A much more robust, complex, and long-term commitment. In a time when our country continues to suffer from two simultaneous pandemics, systemic racism and COVID-19, social change continues to be the lens from which we approach our work. In addition, intersectionality continues to not only frame these conversations, but also serves to ground them. Intersectionality can be defined as a theory, a method, or an approach that examines the simultaneity and interconnectedness of multiple forms of oppression. We, of course, credit Black feminist legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw for coining the term in 1989, but we know that there were a host of other Black feminist scholars who were doing intersectional work simply under other names. Because the practice of naming aloud is so incredibly important for marginalized communities, I'd be remiss in not naming Crenshaw's foremothers, Frances Beale, who coined the term double jeopardy, and Deborah King, who termed it multiple jeopardy, both of which are meant to signal what is lost when we solely focus on racism or solely focus on sexism or negate to include a class critique. In addition to generations of scholarship in this area, there were and continue to be many more activists, allies, and everyday women who understand the power of intersectionality. Perhaps Audre Lorde said it best: there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. The grant partners I have the opportunity of speaking with this evening understand that, and they understand it deeply. They are doing the work that highlights the invisibility of women and girls of color, that elevates their voices, and strives to foster social change in our community. Further, they do this work in the context of a global pandemic that has served to disproportionately harm Black and Brown communities. Without further ado, we'll have our panelists introduce themselves and talk a bit about the organizations they are representing. We'll start with Erin.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Sierra. It's so good to be here and share this space with you all. I am Eryn Hathaway, founder and executive director for Eryn Pink. The mission of Eryn Pink is to challenge the narrative of what it means to be a girl, specifically an African-American girl in today's society, by inspiring girls to set standards and expectations that align with their values and morals, and to empower them to find and use their voices as leaders, discover the concept of purposeful living, and to encourage confidence so they can confront stereotypes and overcome the perception and low expectation of African-American girls and women, using our fictional yet relatable 13-year-old cartoon character, Eryn Pink, through our core 3 programs: the Lunchbox Girl Talk School program, which is now virtual, the She's Go Leadership and Personal Development program, and Give That Girl the Mic, our non-competitive all-girl talent showcase.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Erin. And Linda, we'll move on to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sierra. And thank you to the Women's Fund for this opportunity, to Kelly Grasmere and to Sarah. I'm really honored to be a part of this esteemed panel this evening. I'm representing the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Central Ohio chapter, where I serve as the president for 56 active and sustaining members. We are one of 62 chapters across 26 states, advocating unapologetically for Black women and girls. Our advocacy centers around addressing disparities in health, education, and economic empowerment through a policy lens. So we offer programs to the community, to Black women, and programs for girls, and provide scholarships for Black girls. But we also are looking into creating change, creating systems change, where policies have an adverse impact on Black women and girls. So we are honored to be a part of the discussion this evening. We're so honored to be one of the immediate impact funder recipients. And so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm here representing the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Central Ohio chapter, and all of members who are, hopefully some whom are on the line. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Linda. And last, but certainly not least, Yahaira.
I was in mute. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Women's Fund for this invitation. I'm really looking forward to this conversation tonight. My name is Yahaira Rose, and I represent Proyecto Mariposas, or the translation is Project Butterfly. And what we do is we are a mother and daughter organization. We empower, mentor, and support Latina women and girls with tools, knowledge, and leadership skills to lead brave and strong lives. We do believe that every girl and every woman can live a life that is healthy if she has the support, the tools, the resources, and the mentors to empower her. So we do this through a number of programming throughout the year. And the Women's Fund has been able to support us, and we are a grant partner for the Valiente Fuerte Latina, which means brave, strong Latina. And it is very focused on embracing our Latinidad, on embracing our identity and our heritage. And we are looking on, it is a 10-week program that it's online, and we are going to be extending that one to 1 year because of the need that we have right now for women and girls. So thank you for inviting me today.
All right, thank you all. We have several questions here that we're all clamoring to hear from you about. So I will pose the first question to Linda. And if any of the other panelists feel compelled to share, please do. We want this to be as informal and as comfortable as possible. So the first question is simply, why the Women's Fund, right? What value do we offer as an organization through this partnership?
Oh, thank you. Well, the Women's Fund, I think, has been on the cutting edge of addressing gender issues. And then secondarily, addressing issues through a racial lens. And that really speaks to the work of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. We have been really impressed by the boldness of the Women's Fund to look at sexism and racism and the intersectionality of those two. And to ask the hard questions and to facilitate the hard and sometimes uncomfortable conversations around racism and sexism. I have a long history with the YWCA, whose mission is eliminating racism and empowering women. And for many years, most of the focus was on the empowerment of women piece and not so much on the elimination of racism, unlike it is today, where they certainly embrace both sections of the mission. And that's what I found about the Women's Fund. Through their evolution, they have taken on the bold step of looking at racism. And because I'm with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women as an advocacy organization specifically for Black women, not for women of color, not to discount other women's struggles and disparities and issues that they face, but Black women have a unique history in this country, unique set of experiences and circumstances. And that's what the Coalition of 100 Black Women advocates for. And so to partner with an organization like the Women's Fund, it makes sense because they are investing in creating space for Black women to develop leadership skills, to be seen as a worthy recipient of precious dollars and limited resources, because an investment in Black women is an investment in our community, in our world, in our society. And so we're very honored to be a part of the Women's Fund. They, through a grant, the Women's Fund, we were able to do what we called pop-up conversations during COVID on a limited basis, but and also, you know, being in the guidelines of the governor with the social distancing and masking. But the premise of pop-up conversations was to provide women in certain communities in our community who often feel marginalized or invisible and lack access to resources. And so we partnered with the Chi Eta Phi Black Nurses Association to provide information on how to protect your families during this period of COVID. We provided bags of groceries. We talked to them about the importance of voting, particularly the importance of voting as a Black woman, and the role that we play and the responsibility we had. And so, we take some credit for the outcome of last week. And we were able to do that because the Women's Fund invested in the National Coalition of 100 Black Women to meet women where they are, no matter what their circumstances are. And I often say to our members, we say we advocate for Black women and girls. We also advocate for ourselves because some of us are just one bill away from needing some of the services that we advocate for or that we provide. So it's not that we think that we have it more going on than anybody else, but as Black women, we're all struggling. We're all in this literally together. And if one succeeds, then we all succeed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Linda. And there is a link in the chat box to the website for the National Coalition of 100 Black Women for those of you who are interested in learning more. And I'll pose the same question to our other panelists, and that simply is, why the Women's Fund?
I think Linda hit it on the nail. I agree with everything she shared. And I will also express that as a woman, as a business owner and a woman of color, and a young woman, they were extremely accessible and available for me as an entrepreneur, not only to support the work that I'm doing in the community with my team, but also to support me as a woman and an entrepreneur and be accessible with their resources and what they can offer and give. And so I'm appreciative and grateful for the partnership with the Women's Fund.
And I will add to that. Thank you so much, Linda, for really setting that as a conversation, because it really has helped us. I started engaging with the Women's Fund for about 10 years, if not a little more than that. And as a grant reader and participating in some of the events, and I have been so impressed on how is it that the Women's Fund really support our organizations, our grassroots organizations, on anything that we do, and how is it that they support our growth. And this year, more than ever, as we face the pandemic, we were able to shift our programming, to shift our pivot, our concentration. How is it that we help our girls and women in different areas that we were not accessible to them before? And this is because of the support that we have from the Women's Fund. As Linda mentioned the focus on voting. We also were able to focus on census, which for us, our population, is so important because our Latino population, a lot of times we're not counted, or they're not counted. And we have to educate on voting. We have to educate on the fact that our girls need this for their future. So I am so grateful to the Women's Fund and the support that they have given us through all these years.
Wonderful, thank you. And there's some additional links in the chat to learn more about these particular grant partners. But want to kind of move on through the conversation. Tell us a little bit about the women and girls that you serve. So what are some of the barriers that they face, and what are some opportunities to shift those?
I can start if that's okay. So we work here in Central Ohio. We've been around for 10 years, celebrating our 10th anniversary next year. And we serve the Latina population. We have both the girl and the mom, and they are ages 8 all the way up. And their mom, or maybe it's their sister, maybe it's their aunt, someone who is with them, their adult. And what we do this through mentoring, and we do this through programming. So some of the challenges and barriers that we have been seeing is their status. So we have, our girls represent a lot of different countries. So we have a lot of diversity within our own groups, because we have girls from Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Mexico, Puerto Rico. We have all of this, and each one of their family brings a beautiful heritage, a beautiful culture with them. So we do make sure that that is a very foundational part of our programming. Because of the beauty of that culture, because of the beauty of that heritage, they do face a lot of challenges when they're outside on their community at times or at school. So we are making sure that through our programming, we teach them and we help them understand and embrace that heritage that they have, and how is it that they can use that voice that they have within to empower others and to really lift each other's up.
I'll go. We serve middle school age. Our focus area is middle school age girls. We also attend to high school girls as junior role models, as junior mentors. And then we also enroll college age women and young women, professional women, as mentors to our girls. Our motto is that, and I'm sure we all can remember and relate, being a young girl, you always look up to a girl directly older than you. And so that's our system. When I was younger, when I was about 19 or 18, I realized I was the older teenager, and there were a flock of young middle school age girls following me. And so as I grew into college, later in my college years, I recognized that this natural ability, this natural gift that girls are attracting to me has to be used on purpose and with purpose. And so that's the foundation of our organization, placing motivating older girls to be positive representations for younger girls. And so we focus primarily on middle school age girls, especially African-American girls, but we also cater to the older girls through the program as leaders. We serve primarily African-American girls, but we also have a few school programs where we reach a diverse group of girls. I would say, the barriers that our girls face are, the challenges that girls have are kind of sometimes clumped together. And when we look at Black girls, their challenges are slightly different than just girls' issues. And so some of our girls deal with issues such as adultification. There's a great deal of research that talks about harsh punishment that our girls face at school and in the community. And there's just simply a lot of girls who experience too much responsibility at a young age. And so for us, we find it necessary and important for our girls just to be girls. When they come in the room, if they're 18, they're 19, 25, we understand they're not young women yet. They are still girls, and we give them that liberty to be girls and not to adultify them. And then also they express that it's important for them to be in the room with young women and other girls that look like them. A lot of them spend a lot of time in schools that are very diverse, and they're the only one in the room that looks like them. And so we think it's important to create spaces where they can be themselves, be girls, be innocent girls, and then also be motivated and encouraged by girls and women who look like them.
That's a great segue into talking about a couple of the initiatives that we have for Black girls. One is our Trailblazer Scholarship Award that we give every year to graduating seniors from schools. Primarily, we target 4 surrounding counties, Fairfield, Franklin, Licking, and Delaware counties. We send out applications to all of those schools, as well as charter schools and parochial schools, to give girls an opportunity to apply for scholarships. And then we have a program where they have an opportunity to speak and to talk about their goals. This year we were a little bit delayed on when we had the event because of COVID. And so the girls that we gave scholarships to are already enrolled in college, which is excellent. And so we certainly, want to make sure that we stay in contact with them along the way to provide additional support as they go through their academic careers. A lot of times girls don't know what the possibilities are in terms of career choices. So one of our initiatives is a STEM program, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And we have been fortunate to receive funding from Honda and also from the Women's Fund throughout the years for our Trailblazer events to issue scholarships. But on the middle and high school level, we've had series of workshops for middle school and high school girls that focused on STEM careers, introducing them to scientists and doctors. And we have a member that is in the food science industry. And the exposure to showing girls to what the possibilities are, and showing them women who look like them, who are in these careers, has been life-changing for some of the girls. We also introduce them to women who are business owners in our community, whether it's real estate or having their own marketing firm, or their human resources consultants, and giving girls an opportunity to ask, what is that? Some of them have never heard of anyone who is a human resource consultant. What's a consultant? What does a consultant do? What does that mean? And we do it kind of in a fun environment. Last year we did it with about 20 girls, I think, and they were able to do one of those paint and sip, some places called, but they were painting, with an instructor, and they would do a little bit, and we would stop, and then we'd have some women business owners talk to them about starting their own businesses. Girls around the country and in Columbus as well have started little businesses, social enterprise endeavors, and have become very successful, whether it's, making clothing or, selling whatever. But so talk to them about, the possibilities and the pathways to creating opportunities for themselves. So that's a couple of things that we do for girls. And we also talk to them about their well-being and their health. And I want to follow up on something that Erin was talking about in terms of adultification and the violence that girls often find themselves, exposed to. A high incidence of expulsion and in-school suspension. How do you expect girls to learn if they are, put out of a classroom? And so, we partnered again with the Women's Fund and some other community organizations to premiere Push Out with Dr. Monique Morris. And we had her here for an event to talk to educators and the community about the impact of school suspension and expulsion on our girls, and how they are viewed as being, loud and aggressive and, not showing respect, and things that are terms that are vague and oftentimes used against our girls. And so we want to boost them up and have them feel that they are valued, that they are important, that they are worthy. And so we want to make sure that we are, as adults, that we are creating spaces for them to be honored and celebrated, and so they can use their voices. In terms of women, we have, as I mentioned, our priorities are health, education, economic empowerment. We do a lot of financial literacy work for Black women in terms of looking at equal pay, closing the wealth gap, preparing themselves for financial sustainability. We have a nationally branded program called Sisternomics. And the philosophy behind that is that we need to take care of our own financial health and our own financial well-being. Because oftentimes as women, we are looked at as the bank or the ATM for our family members, particularly if we have what's viewed as a good job. We're the go-to. Hey, can I get a loan? Can you help a sister out? I need help paying my rent this month. But if we're not taking care of our own financial well-being, making sure that we have our documents in order, so if something happens to us, our family's not, burdened with having to take care of our needs, to make sure that we have our wills and our trust, that we are making investments, that we have savings, that if we're in a position to and want to own a home, because that helps to create generational wealth. So building in those kinds of initiatives to help women to take care of themselves. So it's called Sisternomics. It's not about being selfish, it's about being responsible and creating a legacy for the next generation.
Absolutely. So thank you all for responding to that question. It's absolutely beautiful, and that's kind of the first word that comes to mind, kind of the intersectional approach and the spaces that you've created for women and girls of color that we otherwise wouldn't have and that wouldn't exist. So this is simply beautiful, and that's the first word that comes to mind. So my next question is kind of in the context of COVID-19, which we know has disproportionately harmed communities of color. What do you see, or what have you seen as the greatest needs for the women and girls that you serve right now?
I think for us, the greatest need for, and I'll start with women, are resources and knowing where to access those resources. When this first started, it was as basic as, how do I protect myself with, having masks or gloves? Because oftentimes Black women particularly are in low paying, low earning jobs that were deemed essential. So they started to go to work every day, whether they had childcare or not. Schools were closed suddenly without giving time for families to be able to prepare for school systems to be able to prepare. Not placing blame on anyone, it's just something that happened. Things just shut down. And so how do you prepare your family when you are oftentimes, as a Black woman, you may be the only or the primary breadwinner. So how do I take care of my children who are no longer in school, but I'm considered an essential worker, still have to go to work, or if I don't, there's no income for my family. So what do I do? Where are the resources? Where do I go? Before we had this concentrated system for I'm not providing resources, I think we do now, but do women who are not necessarily well connected or even have computers in their homes or part of an organization know where to access those resources? And then how do I get the health care that my family needs? That was pre-COVID and in the midst of COVID. How do I protect my family? And that was one of the areas that we covered in our pop-up conversations, was providing resources to health departments and clinics around accessing resources. That we provided masks, we provided gloves for families, for women who came to the pop-up conversation. So I think some of the barriers are resources, knowing where those resources, being connected to those resources, because Columbus is resource rich if you know what that pipeline is. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole segment of our community, not necessarily just Black women, people, period, that don't know where to go and how to access them. And so I see that was a huge barrier, particularly in the beginning.
I can. Oh, go ahead, Erin.
Go ahead.
So I will add to what Linda mentioned. So there is a lot of resources for our girls, but I will add a layer, and it's the language. A lot of our participants, a lot of our girls and mothers and their families, they only speak Spanish. They don't speak English. So when you have those barriers, and then you add a lack of language, when you add that we need to be able to provide resources that are helpful in their language, that are bilingual, that adds a lot of stress, not only for the mom, but then for the family. And on top of that, we have families that are undocumented. So how is it that we can help those families through these resources? Because they cannot even apply for an assistance. They don't have insurance. So how is it that we're able to help them? So that's from the mother's perspective. Then we add the layer of school. So how is it that I navigate a new system for my kids? How is it that I even understand an online system that it's on a different language that I can't even navigate? How do I help my child? So what that has been doing is that's been adding extra stress to the children, to the girls that we work with. And it's interesting because through the entire pandemic, we've been working with these girls since March. The moment that they shut down, we increase our touch points with them and with their moms. And we can see like the top and how it starts declining on the moods, on how is it that the stress keep climbing, and how is it that we need to be shifting as continuously, almost on a week to week, as everything changed. It's how is it that we provide all these resources, and like Linda mentioned, the connection. How is it that we can connect you with the resources? And even when COVID, when tracking started, we have to even educate of, if you see this number, if something happened, you have to answer. And there is no shame on having a positive test, because there is that also. And that combine that with language and everything else that we're facing, it is a lot of stress and barriers for our families.
Along with all the resources and the essential requirements and things that, basic needs that girls and women need, we recognize that our girls needed face-to-face experiences. And so during COVID, we were challenged with the decision whether we would cancel our leadership program and do it virtually, or do some type of a pickup system where they would get some resources from us. And after, expressing those ideas to our parents, they were completely opposed and wanted us to take a tally to see how many parents would be willing to have a in-person program even during this time. And so, we were challenged with, the concept of, going through with an in-person program during COVID, but we made the necessary changes because our parents felt like it was important for their girls to meet face-to-face. At this time, our program was to start in April. And at this time, the girls were already out of school because schools closed at the end of the school year in 2019 or 2020, early 2020. And so they had spent March, April, May, June, July at home and isolated without peers and connections, anyone to interact with, and to, have that affection, that human to human face-to-face interaction. And so we proceeded with our in-person program. We modified it greatly to keep, the social distancing and to make sure we were all safe. But we recognized mostly, along with, basic essentials, they needed that affection. They needed our touch. They needed to see us. They needed to hear us and be in the room with us. But what mostly concerns me about girls and Black girls are the challenges that they were already facing at home, which we focused on. We were already addressing the issues, the disparities, the struggles that they have. And then we had to enhance our lessons and our programs to now address the issues that COVID brought. And so COVID enhanced the obstacles and brought new challenges that did not exist, or they're just coming to surface. And this year, we were concerned about our students who were already falling through the cracks academically and socially. I, struggled. I was personally concerned with a student who was already 2 grades behind where she was. And she was struggling with social skills and having the determination to even focus in the building, in school. And so we lost that face-to-face interaction, we lost that affection, and then we mostly lost that accountability. And so due to those issues, we challenge ourselves to figure out, how do we still reach our girls? How do we reach them in a place where they may be dealing with domestic violence at home because they're spending more time at home with family members who would typically be at home or typically be at work, and they would typically be at school. How do we handle girls who are now increasing their responsibilities or taking part-time jobs to help their families? These are just additional issues that we saw and we recognized. And so we pushed through and we challenged ourselves to continue an in-person program because they needed to see us, they needed that support. And for us and for our girls, the virtual experience just wasn't good enough for them.
And can I add something to what Erin said? Because I think that what probably, Erin, you also faced the fact that it was not an option for us to stop the programming because they needed that. So it's how is it that we could quickly change our approach to be able to cater what is it that they need. And for us, something, and I don't know if for you, it was happened to you as well, but for us, it was very important to leverage a lot of the organizations that were out there to help us with this. So we're helping people from Columbus Public Health, people from like lawyers, people that could help us in all of these different challenges to be able to help these families in a whole new different ways. Because there was an option, it was not an option to cancel programs, it was how is it that we shifted to make sure that we were there. And at times we were more present than what we were before because they needed it more.
Absolutely.
I think you all have done a very beautiful job kind of articulating and humanizing, right, some of the disenfranchisement that we may hear about, right, but we aren't necessarily close to when it comes to the experiences of women and girls of color. But Erin, I want to go back to something you said, and that was talking about concern about a particular student or a particular participant. And I want to ask each of you, is there that one person or that one outcome that highlights the shift that you're working to create?
Yeah, so our shift that we're creating is a shift in definition. Our In 2019, our girls, they took a survey and majority of them told us that they were perceived to be too loud, mean, bossy, and too Black. This does not surprise me because their experiences were my experiences growing up. These stereotypes mirror the way that society often sees Black women as neck rolling and finger snapping, angry women. I was looking at, I try not to, but I was watching some of the comments on the news on Facebook when Kamala Harris did a debate. And some of the responses were immediately, oh, she's so angry. And that response is the exact response and how our girls are perceived at school. These consequences of these stereotypes shape the educational and professional and social experiences of our Black girls and result that follows them throughout life. And so our programs, our shift in definition is to create opportunities for girls to be leaders, to not be seen or classified as bossy, mean, and Black, too Black. That's outrageous. We want to restructure, shift the definition of what it means to be a Black girl, and position her as a leader. And so our program, our leadership program, focused on teaching them how to speak up, how to advocate for themselves, how to call themselves a leader in the room. We position several other entrepreneurs, professional women in front of them. We have a young woman who's a mentor on our program, and she's a pharmacist. She's a young pharmacist, and we're like, have you ever seen a pharmacist? Have you ever seen a Black pharmacist? And that was mind-blowing to them. So we work to change this definition of what the world may see a Black girl as, and change it and so that she can see herself as a leader and therefore go out in the community and speak as a leader, talk as a leader, and change the narrative of what it means to be a Black girl in the community. And we're proud of the work that we did. We're proud that we continued and persevered through COVID, because some of the opportunities that arise gave them the opportunity to have a platform. NBC4 and ABC6, they came to interview our students in our program. And so we positioned them as leaders. You know, we had the anchors interview them. We wanted their voices to be leveraged and to hear, you know, how they were experiencing life, especially during COVID, but the social justice issues, the rioting, like this year has been so heavy and so unpredictable. But we wanted to make sure our girls in the midst of it still can identify themselves as leaders and to break that mold of what a Black girl is to the community. I had one of our high school programs, to go into your specific question, one of our high school programs, we focus on creating a space where girls are free to just talk about and interact with other girls, their personal experiences of being Black. And I had a student, she was biracial, and she did not know that, not until recently, she didn't know what her other background was. She knew that she was raised with a predominantly white family, but she didn't know her father. And so she shared a story. We worked on in this program, she shared a story how she, at the dinner table at a family gathering, she had an aunt who specifically said something rude about another race. This was common for her. She was used to hearing stereotypes and prejudice in her household. But this particular moment, she felt, you know, a pull at her heart, because she said her aunt at that moment was freely saying something, knowing that it could have been the other half of her, and it could hurt her. And so she joined our group, and I think actually that year she just had found out she was mixed with white and African American. And so that year in high school, she joined they call it Melanin Girls. She joined our high school group, Melanin Girls, because she was not raised around her African American side of the family. And so she wanted to connect, and she wanted to learn more about the experiences of Black girls. And what she realized, her experiences, even though she was raised in a white household, her experiences were similar. Her issues with her hair. She didn't understand why she had issues with her hair. Her issues when she went out in the community, even though she was with her white family, why she stood out, why she was stared at, why she was treated different when she went in the store. She didn't understand these things until she came in this classroom with other girls who looked like her and had the same experiences as her. And so there she was able to leave these conversations and therefore change the definition for herself because she grew up in it. And so she believed some of the prejudice herself. And so in that moment, the shift of definition wasn't only for the community and towards us, but that shift of definition happened for her and who she was. And then now she's able, because of the result of being a part of our program, she's able to go back and advocate and be a leader in the community and go home to her family and speak up on the things that are important to her because of who she is. On a side note, you know, she was proud when she left. She was proud of being African-American, things that she did not do, such as African-American hairstyles. She was comfortable to do it because of who she was and because she was able to relate with other girls who look like her.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Erin. I do want to remind our attendees that they can pose questions in the Q&A box. We are dwindling down on our time together, and we do want to make sure to include our audience as much as possible. So we do have a question from Carrie, and that is, how do the panelists feel about Kamala Harris making history as Vice President-elect? And what does this mean for the future of women and girls?
Well, I'll go. I am extremely proud to have a Black woman, a biracial woman, a woman, period, as Vice President. I think it's a historical moment that we all can be very, very proud of. This is another chip in that glass ceiling that has been shattered. But I want us to be realistic about what this means. I think it has helped us to breathe a little easier now that the election is where it is. I'll say where it is because it's not over. But we can breathe a little bit easier. However, there is a lot weighing on this, on Vice President-elect Kamala Harris as a Black woman, because as soon as she steps out of place, it's like, see, this is what happens when you have a woman, or this is what happens when you have a Black woman. I mean, not that it doesn't happen, but there's a huge burden on Black women to outperform, but do it within a certain parameters where she's not seen as Erin said earlier, as angry or not smiling enough. Well, she has every right to be angry. No one asks men why they don't smile more, or comment about what they're wearing, or all those things that she has to deal with, and she's going to be dealing with, and she's been dealing with them before she was VP elect. But there's a lot on her shoulders. She certainly paid homage to those whose shoulders she stands on, but now she's going to bear the brunt for the rest of us coming, and those others coming behind her. It's a very proud moment, but we've got to make sure that we have her back at every turn, no matter what. We have to stay in her corner, and it serves no purpose for us to engage in negativity or disparaging remarks about her as a Black woman. We have every right to question her policies or the administration's policies, but when things come out, when they continue to come out about her as a person, we have to make sure that we have her, that we cover her with our love and our support, no matter what. Because this is historical, and we should be proud of it. But let's not have unrealistic expectations.
And I will add real quick, thank you. But for us, it was such a beautiful moment, such a proud moment, because Now our girls can also think that as a Latina girl, they can achieve something. They can achieve that. And I have been so impressed by how alert and how aware and how interested is this generation of girls on the politics right now. They are so involved in it as an advocate, and they want to get engaged. And this is a clear just sign on what's coming. So I think that we need to continue empowering them and provide these type of programs to help them get there, and continue seeing all these role model women just out there, so they can reach their dreams too.
Thank you. I think we have time to briefly address one more question from the audience that I think is very important. And that is from Betsy Blake, who asks, is there a component within any of your organizations that also addresses women and girls who identify with the LGBTQ community?
So I don't have great experience. We don't have many that are involved with our program, but one of our school programs, we do have students who we address and we identify. They're more than welcome to join our Melanin Girls group at one of our partner schools. And they, I guess for us at our school program, one of our specific contracts that we have, we open this space so that we can all learn from each other's experiences. And so we're open and we're welcoming to everyone, whether they are female or male or African-American or not. And so when we create that open door and that open space, we are learning from each other's experiences.
And the coalition is a partnering organization with the Rise Sister Rise. And I'm sure a lot of you, the panelists as well as the audience, knows about Rise Sister Rise. And it's a leadership, and it's a think tank for Black girls that is completely, Black led by the girls. And so they created 6 priorities that they wanted to work on. And one of them is addressing and including and honoring LGBTQ girls and trans girls, girls from all backgrounds, and valuing and creating space for leadership and for empowerment for all girls from the LGBTQ community. So we're very, very proud to be a partnering organization with Rise Sister Rise, and those girls are doing phenomenal work. Right now, they're looking at issues of bullying in schools and school policies and the state policies around bullying on a variety of levels. They also did a mental health campaign. They, called attention to removing the stigma of mental illness. So these girls are cutting edge, and the things that Yahaira mentioned about, keeping these young people engaged. The girls in Rise Sister Rise are very politically engaged and know what's going on with the election, what's going on with policy, what's going on with the Supreme Court. And that's what we need to have to make sure that we are encouraging that we're creating space, that we don't stand in the way of that we allow the girls to dig deep and to question what's happening in our country and what's happening to those who some view as different from them, and creating opportunities for all girls to be honored and celebrated and protected. So I guess to answer that person's question, yes, I think we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yahaira, Erin, and Linda, very much for your time, for your expertise, and your sharing with us tonight about the very important and impactful work that you were doing on behalf of women and girls of color in our community, especially in the context of COVID. I appreciate that you are doing this work with a politic of love and caring in a way that is intersectional, and one that promotes social change, right, for the women and girls that we're working with right now and for the ones who are yet to be born, right? So creating this just world and being bold enough to dream about a place where all of these inequities that we're talking about no longer exist, right? So we are out of time, and I know we could continue to talk all night if we were able, but I will turn it over to.
Well, hello, everyone. I hope that there is no question why we wanted you to hear from these grant partners tonight. I am full of adrenaline having heard what they had to say, and I hope you are too, because we are, as Linda and the others so eloquently said, we are the love and support for these organizations. We're not just funders. We are the climate of change that they need to move forward. We are the rocket fuel for what they need to do to achieve equity. And we are going to achieve equity and support them in doing that today, as much as we started doing 20 years ago, and for hopefully as short of a time as it takes to reach that goal. But we can't do it without all of you. We can't do it without you championing us in the community and them in the community, championing equity and vulnerability and support. And so for those of you who are in our fall challenge, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the challenge tonight to be here to learn more. You know that we also challenged you to fundraise, and this is exactly why. You know, a lot of people think, why would you ask us to fundraise? Ew, that's not the part we wanted. We are a funding movement at the Women's Fund. Our founders created us to break down barriers and to be courage capital for the things that our system does not fund, for the people our system does not fund. And these women sit at that intersection where they are not the people who are being funded first or being funded enough. This Women's Fund is the antidote to that. We are here to fund them, love them, and support them to success. And that takes every single dollar we have. So we asked you as Fall Challenge participants to try to raise $100 on Facebook. Have some fun with it. I can tell you, Betsy Blake on this call, thank you. She already succeeded. And I know many of you are going to give it a try. And we couldn't be more thankful for that effort, because you'll not only be fueling, you will not only be the rocket fuel for their success, to the grant partners that we are about to look at funding for 2021. That's about to happen in December. And I can tell you that the math is that there is $1 million worth of great programs in our community and great women running those programs that need our funding. And our current budget, we're very proud to say that we had $250,000 that we intend to put into the community, but that's a quarter of what they need. And so every square bit of warrior spirit that you have, that you can devote to getting the word out about our funding movement, about the courageous capital that we're providing to them, will make a difference. For those of you who have been underwriters or who have been founders or have been donors over the years, thank you. And we hope that this is inspiring you to renew those commitments, or to inspire others to take on those commitments, because every single dollar matters. And the faster that we raise it and invest it, the faster we reach equity. So I want to thank you all for being here with us tonight. It is my distinct honor to represent our organization as the president and CEO, and it is my distinct honor to be able to invest in these partners you heard from tonight. I hope that you walk away inspired, and please call us, email us, text us, whatever it takes to ask the questions you have about how we fund, why we fund, and why it's so important. But it's not a question of whether you need to fund this. It's when. And we hope that you will help us do that every single dollar at a time. So thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for taking the time. And we look forward to seeing you so much more often, and hopefully in person sooner than later. Thank you so much.